And hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Just Breathe podcast. Today we have the beautiful Basy Shaked with us, a DBT professional who was the powerhouse behind a therapeutic residential center for teens at risk for 13 years in Bet Shemesh, in Israel, where she saw real healing happen. Hi, Basy. Welcome.
You so much, Shibolet, for having me with you today.
Oh, it's such an honor to
Exciting.
speak with you and to get some of your knowledge and share, and hopefully it will help some of our listeners who have teens that need help or the parents that need help navigating this time. Um,
Amen.
yeah, amen. So we just before we press record, we had a little blessing that this should bring healing to someone, and we should have siyata dishmaya. And I like what you said, Bassie, that a lot of the parents need the healing as well because teenagers, bless them, are a very fragile stage in development in life. They have hormones going on, they have peer pressure, they have a lot of things going on. Could you tell us a bit about what you saw at your center? Maybe tell us a bit of your about the center, the therapeutic center, and what it was.
Sure. I was an at-risk teen myself, so I'm 100 now, so that was a very, very long time ago. And it wasn't so popular to be at risk when I was a kid, so there weren't as many of us. And it was lonely and it was difficult. And I promised myself that when I was grown up, I would do something for at-risk teens that could address some of that real confusion and pain. The pain is so acute when you're an at-risk teen. And so we started a residential center. I was having a bunch of teenagers in and out of my home, and I felt so limited in what I could offer them just in a home setting. I couldn't give them therapy. I couldn't give them structure. I had no leverage with them. I could just love them. And that's a big part of it, but it's not enough. And then one day I said, I got to do something more. And my husband gave me his blessing, and we embarked on on creating the center. It was a 2 year program, a therapeutic program. We had group therapy, individual therapy. We had psychiatrists on team. Everything was built around the therapy for these young ladies that came to us from Chutz La'aretz mostly. They were coming from out of the country. Taking them away from their environment was a part of it, and creating this safe environment for them to explore what they've been through and what they're going through and how to become more functional, healthier, productive members of society was the goal. And we had beautiful results. I can't say that it was across the board, but we had predominantly positive results. Thank God, Baruch Hashem. And we ran it for
Amazing.
13 years.
Wow, wow. It takes a very special neshama to want to do that, to want to help
Or
and
crazy. It can, when I'd be fundraising, sometimes I'd be like, I don't know what that was. Like Hashem just did this lightning in my head because there was 13 years worth of teens that needed healing, but sometimes it felt like a very crazy thing to do. I'm
wow.
not
I,
gonna.
I think you can have both. Is it okay to say you could hold both? You could have a craziness or a braveness. I like to reframe it as and as well as a kind heart because teens you used one of your sentences was that they really need love, which is not enough. Need love and skills and other tools, such as DBT, which is one of the things that you worked on very, specifically with them. But love for sure is something that a lot of parents in their frustration with their teen breaking the rules and breaking the disrespect or whatever that the way they speak is there's this one book I forget who it's by but it says that their teenager is literally crazy. Well, they literally are crazy because hormones take over and they're not thinking straight, they're not who they used to be, and everything's changing. So what would you say is something that parents could work on that teens at risk actually need. And again, maybe we can just define what teens at risk actually is, because there are some teens out there, Baruch Hashem, bless them, that do manage to go through the system and go through life, and they, they get a bit rough around the edges, but they come out okay. And then there's, I don't know exactly what the percentage is. Someone once told me that it's quite high, like 80-20. Like the 20 are the ones that get through okay, and then there's 80 that really need some extra attention. And then out of those 80, there's probably about 40 or 30 that really, really are at risk and need extra, a lot extra attention. Would you say you saw such a percentage? Like how would you define teens at risk?
Oh, asking me if that's what I saw, we have to remember that I started Sophia in 2000. So we're 26 years later now. And this issue has evolved in time. So I can't say that it's always been this way. I also think that when we're talking about teenagers, there's a healthy process that teenagers need to go through in order to become healthy adults of individuating and becoming autonomous and separating from the expectations of their families, their community. And that's a really important part of the process in order to be healthy adults. And sometimes we look at teenagers that got through intact, but we don't recognize that intact means they're going to go through this later, which is problematic. But sometimes just that process looks different for many different people, depending on what they're coming from, what they're coming with. And if there's trauma in their history or in their background, we're not going to see that on children. Children are resilient. Children kind of take things for granted and everything's kind of okay. And then in adolescence, we start to see the results of what they've been through as children. And so in this process, while they're becoming autonomous, what that autonomy looks like really depends on where they're coming from and what they're carrying with them into this process and their relationships with their parents. Because their parents can be a really big piece of how this process ends up looking.
Right, right. That's a beautiful key to add to the formula is that parents come with their own trauma and their own background and their own way that they were parented. So it could be that a child behaves like the good child and does everything right, and then you're right, later on that tension comes out in other ways, health issues or whatever it may be, that they never were allowed to express themselves. So really, I think that leads me to one of my points is that a healthy teen what would you describe a healthy teen as? And one of them that came up in my research is that they can express themselves and feel accepted. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that eventually, I mean, the process hopefully would lead a teenager to be able to communicate, express themselves, know what they need, and figure out how to create belonging where they want to belong and help themselves belong to a society one way or another.
Right. Belonging is huge too, and acceptance and rejection and all of that is what a lot of the teens struggle with, and come out in ways of expressing themselves with blue hair or pink hair or piercings or tattoos or whatever it is that they use extreme ways of self-expression because it's almost just to be seen and to be loved, either way. And sometimes a lot of that rebellious behavior is to push those boundaries and to see how much their parents will still love them, right? So if we could bring it down to what parents could give a teen at risk, I've got here acceptance, connection, safety. Is there anything you want to add to those?
I think we were just recently, my daughter actually took all of our family videos because we once had videotapes and she had them digitalized. So on Hanukkah, we've been watching like, I don't know, 12 tapes worth of family videos, 12 years worth of family videos. It was a lot of fun. It brought a lot of insight also. It was very like emotional to see that. And afterwards, I asked my children are very close and we maintained close relationships. And I asked them afterwards, like, what allowed this? I was watching it. What allowed that? In your memory of this, what allowed this? And really, I think that my children said, we always felt like you enjoyed us, and so my children got the benefit of having a mom that worked with teens for many years. So, now we get to say this to people that didn't get to work with teens, that I think that a big thing for children is to feel not just loved, because love comes in so many shapes and sizes. And love isn't always appreciation, and love isn't always seeing me through a positive lens. But all of us, we like to be seen through a positive lens. We like to be seen with positive regard. We like, even if our self concept is poor, we'd like that the people that love us to see us as wonderful, not just love us. Because loving is how we take care of somebody, and they can be difficult and they can be hard. And let's be real, teenagers often are really difficult. But if the parents can see their child's beauty and the wonderful things about this child, and keep that first, like top of mind, keep that in the forefront of how we engage with our children and really enjoy them. If we find a way to really enjoy them, I think this is a very big key into sustaining that relationship. And sustaining that relationship is key into having any leverage in terms of containment, guidelines, boundaries, structure, rules. And that structure is key in allowing children to kind of explore their autonomy in a way that's safe for them.
Wow, I love that. I almost see it as a container, parents being the container for this incredible, powerful emotional stage in a teenager's life, and having a safe environment for them to express themselves, to like you said, it doesn't always have to be positive, and a lot of teenage time interactions can be quite negative. One of the best pieces of advice I was given when dealing with my teenagers is not to take things personally, because if you do, there could be a lot of fireworks, and it really humbles you as a person, as an adult, as a parent, to see that things don't have to be exactly how you imagined and how you want.
And I also, writing on what you just said about taking things personally. So, as I was thinking about this meeting that we're going to have, one of the things I thought about is how easy it is to take things personally. And we may not take things personally when our children are small, but as they move into adulthood, we start to, like, their lens of us matters a little bit more. But the minute we're going to take things personally, that is giving them power that they don't need, that isn't healthy for them, isn't good for them. And so that's our garbage coming into that relationship the minute we're going to take it personally. And one of the things I say to parents often is, as your kid moves into teenhood, this is your moment to really self examine, because you have an opportunity to work on your material, on the areas where you're broken, because we all are broken. None of us got out scot free, hate to tell you. So we get to explore those areas in our own lives, because our teenagers, they have 20/20 vision when it comes to who we are. They're going to hone right in there, and they're going to push those buttons, and they're going to activate those wounds. So it's our opportunity to do some healing of our own, so that we can be better parents to our teens, not to impress them, but so that our material isn't getting pulled, sucked in, and blocking the process for our children.
Wow, I love that. I love seeing it from a reframe, as in they're actually doing something positive for us with all this difficulty. Because
For
when you have
sure.
little kids, you're like, okay, Hashem's getting me to work on my midot, on my patience, on my anger, on all kinds of things. But there's a saying, bigger kids, bigger problems. When they're older, oh my goodness, do they refine things about you that you thought were put to sleep forever? And you're like, wow, this is back. Okay. So it makes us really refine ourselves too. I think that's Hashem's
Yeah.
plan. Maybe that's why he gave us teenagers at that stage of life, and really to get us to work on ourselves even more. And when you can
Yeah.
come out the other side, the relationship, just like you said, the relationship is so important. And if you can try and get some elements right, you can really build a very meaningful, deep relationship, right? And meaningful isn't just positive and perfect. It's sometimes it's hard, and sometimes you have difficult conversations, and sometimes you have to put down boundaries, right?
Absolutely. So you would ask, like, what do teenagers need from parents? And I think the first thing is, we look at these teenagers when they're problematic, they're kind of all over the place, and we think that what they need are limits and rules, and they do. But you have no leverage or no access to giving them any limits or rules because they can do at this point, they could do whatever they want. Let's be real. They could do whatever they want. So if you want to be able to have that leverage, you need to be able to be enjoying them and having a relationship that serves them, where it's very clear to them that A, you see them through a lens that they appreciate, and B, that you have their very best interest in mind. And it's not based on ego, and it's not our own pride, and it's not our own material that we're getting to, but we can really collaborate with them on what is going to be best for their journey. And they have ideas about that too, whether they're right or wrong, but they have ideas about what their journey should look like. And at this point in teenhood, it's important to be able to collaborate together with them because we're no longer the parents of small children where we could say, schlep them along with our ideas, which is healthy for smaller children. At this point, their need for autonomy is going to win. So if we're not going to accommodate that need along the way in little bits between 12 to 18, kind of relinquishing more and more of the control and giving them the reins of their own life, if we're not going to accommodate that in a collaborative way, they're going to take it anyways, and we're going to be out.
Wow.
We're not going to be in that relationship circle. So if we'd like to be in there with them, to protect them, to ensure that it's going well, to serve the bigger picture of their growth, we need to be buckling down to eliminate ego, pride in the process, and come at them with positive regard and enjoying them.
And you said
And
it.
then entertainment and rules and all of the other stuff can come then, but we don't have access without that.
You said it beautifully before as well about the 2020 vision. They can sniff out like a dog, literally, if you are coming with pride, anger, ego. If you don't like them, loving your child, everyone loves their child, please God. That's what everyone does. But do you like your child? Do you want to be with them? Do you want to spend time with them? They can tell. They can feel it. They sense it a mile away. If you don't like them, they'll know that. And it pushes them
And you have
further away.
nothing with them. Like you're out in the if you don't and then there's the other extreme. If you like them too much because you really want them to feel liked and it's not coming from an authentic appreciation, they can smell that too.
That's such a good point because especially now in 2026, there's a bit of an issue with parents not taking the authority role. They want to be the friend because they don't want their teenager to not like them. They want to be liked. Which do you want to be their friend or their parent? They need a parent. They have lots of friends, please God. They need a parent. And authority, like you said, does not have to come with force. Force is the issue. The minute you bring force in, they back up. It's again, I see a lot in terms of dogs and training dogs, and they'll put their back up, like they'll become defensive. So it's how do you approach them, right? Authority can be used in a different way. It can be, there's a different avenue. You come in from a side of caring and what's healthy and what's good for you. And right, if you're going to be on your phone till 2 a.m., that's not healthy. But there's another side of the parent that could be like, you're grounded and I'm taking your phone away and it's force. And really they don't do so well with that. Even if they do, if you get them to submit into agreeing, it backfires eventually because they'll have this resentment that comes out somehow, right? In other
Yeah, that
ways.
you can't really protect the relationship if we're going to be forceful. And also that's only going to work up until a certain point. And then what are you left with at that point in terms of the relationship and also in terms of their own ability to manage their own lives? Like the idea of allowing autonomy is because they need to be making their decisions. They need to learn healthy decision making tools. They need to be able to contain their own selves one way or another, pay their own consequences. This process towards autonomy is critical. So we don't want
Absolutely.
to rob them of too much of that.
Right, right, absolutely. So that they can have self-confidence in their own decision making and learn. right? That's how we did it. We would take teenagers once too, like you said that you were a teen at risk, and a lot of people have to learn the hard way, and there's a lot of temptation out there. There's a lot of negativity that pulls teens in, addictions, and there's a statistic now of self-harming and suicide attempts that's risen drastically in the past 10 years at least. How would you advise parents to look out for signs, like if a teen is headed in that direction, or um, how to avoid such a thing if that's possible? I mean, again, it's very in depth. It's the whole relationship and the whole, there's a lot behind it. I mean, if they're coming from an abuse background and that's how they're dealing with it because they couldn't share it with anyone. A lot of parents are surprised when these things happen. They think that they thought that they had a good relationship, and they're very surprised when some parents are very surprised when something like this happens. So what would you um
Well, first of all, I want to say that when we dis if we discover, if or when we discover that our child is self-harming or is suicidal or has suicidal ideation, um, this does not mean that we do not have a good relationship, even if we never knew it before. It is not an indicator of the relationship. That's really important. And I also think that the minute, if we're really uh, being discovering anything like this, the first thing that has to be done is reaching out for professional counsel immediately. These are This is not something to play around with. And I'm coming back to what I said earlier, a positive regard and enjoying our children and seeing them through the lens of beauty is still the life jacket, the life vest, the life, what is it called? Lifesaver. That word
life
that
jacket?
it
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's still gonna be the number one thing that I think as parents we can offer. But we must seek counsel and be guided. The child needs to be in counseling. I wouldn't recommend that parents say, this is what I'm going to do to help my kid. First, seek counsel and then decide what you're going to do to help your kid. And it looks different for each child. Some children and the relationship, some kids are going to let their parents be involved in helping contain this. Some will not. Some might need hospitalization. For some, hospitalization might be the really bad for them. So I wouldn't, it's too sensitive a thing for me to actually offer any. I'd be scared to offer real guidance on that. It's so individual. Get help. That's the first thing I'm going to say. The only thing I think I should say.
Right, absolutely. That's very responsible. So, but I also like that you mentioned that the parents shouldn't always blame themselves if something, God forbid, was to happen that way, because it could be anything. It could be social pressure. It could be anything could come up that a teen feels overwhelmed by that they couldn't share with their parent for whatever reason. And so the blame and the shame is really something that I like that you mentioned can fall away in such a sad situation, and really to focus on the teenager and to get them help, please God. What such things as social media, like you said, the place you had was quite a few years ago. So what would you say today is part of the problem that affects our teens?
Could you clarify your question?
Yeah, so sorry, I'm saying that there's some more pressure today, it seems, with social media, with technology, with the the access they have to comparing themselves with others and feeling good enough, and um this kind of perfect imagined life that might not have been
Hmm.
so evident before.
Yeah, I think the dangers of social media for teens are, aside from even the comparing being part of the danger, but also contact with people. Like the world becomes so small through social media where we have access to everybody. Automatically people, strangers are all of a sudden just right there in front of us. Um, and it's not like you take steps and you're there. You could be a kid that's sheltered and then boom, you're like a 13-year-old little girl that's super sheltered, and then all of a sudden you're talking to a 35-year-old man. If you went down the wrong rabbit hole online. So the dangers are really profound, and we don't have enough in place with that at all. I do like just regular standard basic apps that help, like Family Link, or I like, as long as relationships are allowing and parents have that sort of leverage, which is why the relationship is so critical, because that leverage can really help. Then having Family Link and supervising what our kids are doing online, if they let us, is if we're still in that kind of relationship, is critical. One of the things that I work on with parents often is it's like a program that I call the Partnership of Authority, where together with the teenagers, we sit together and we make lists of household, like these are the household rules, and these are the child rules, like the rules that relate specifically to this child. And we create them together in a way that the child understands their value and their needs are being taken into account. And this requires that the child, again, relies on the parent for positive regard and knows that their best interest is being really held at the forefront of everything. In that partnership of authority, part of what I'd like to talk about is the social media use, um, guidelines for what we're allowed to post, how much time we spend on social media, and then the assistance of apps like Family Link can help monitor and navigate that. But that's in relationships where there's a level of leverage. If we don't have that sort of leverage, we're dealing with a certain danger and we need to be aware.
Right, right. Thank you for that. Would you say it's beneficial to have discussions around physical safety and even a substance abuse? Like I always wondered, is it better to talk about substance abuse or does that bring it to their focus? Like would you tell them how dangerous it is or does that bring it to their focus and now they're thinking about it?
I'm very big into being authentic with our kids. I don't think that there's anything. Let's remember that these are kids that are moving into adulthood, whether we like it or no. We're not going to really get to shelter them. And the odds are that they've already been exposed, particularly since, like you said, there's all this social media available. Kids are exposed. And it would be so much better for our children if these conversations are open and authentic and we're part of those conversations. And if we know they're going to get exposed, wouldn't we like to be their first exposure through the lens that we would like them to have, uh, if they're willing? So, yeah, I think these conversations should be happening, but I also think they should be happening with an openness to, has our child already been exposed and to what extent? Because if we're having these conversations, maybe they've been exposed, maybe they've been using, maybe they have friends that are using. Being One of the things I also put in my notes was that um, my background is DBT. So Marsha Lanahan, who created DBT, she talks a lot about irreverence as a skill in working with people, but also for parents, I talk about it a lot. Irreverence, lightness, ease, teasing, humor, just a lot of reducing some of the intensity, regardless to how challenging things are, but keeping things light. And so if we're going to be talking about drug use or promiscuity or whatever, we definitely want to drive the points home about how dangerous they are. But we can infuse some teasing and some bantering, and we have a better chance of getting some authentic responses when it's lighter and less threatening.
I love
And
that.
hearing where our children are with this.
I love that. Just lighten the whole thing up. You're right. Why put so much weight on a topic that's already weight infused? So making it lighter and it really adds a bit of you can communicate. Then you can it's not a power struggle. Then it becomes we're on the same team, right? Against
Yeah.
the
And
substance.
working with, yes, exactly. I'm working with a family on this partnership of authority situation, and one of the issues that they're working with me for on is because he uses a lot of marijuana. He's really involved in using weed as how he manages his life. And he's in, I know the teen world, and he's in pretty good company, and his friends are all smoking, and he's smoking, and the parents are horrified, right? And and as long as we're going to be horrified, it's going to be a really challenging conversation. I'm not horrified. I would have been surprised if I discovered that he wasn't, honestly. And do I think that this is going to ruin his life? No, I really don't. Um, he will learn how to use it to benefit him. And eventually, he's probably going to use it a lot less. Looking at him and speaking with him, he has really great values. He's a great family. He's going to go through a period. Will he continue smoking weed as an adult? Possibly, possibly not. But my attitude is kind of like, let's wait and see, and let's kind of learn what it's doing for him. And let's ask him questions about where it's helpful to him. And let's ask him questions about where he's finding that it's in his way and where would he wish it wasn't in his way. And those are the places we can help him if we're open. But if we're too horrified and it's a really intense conversation, we really want to impose upon him how dangerous it is and why he should stop doing it and why this is never going to be good for him. We've lost him a long time ago. We can't really explore with him what he thinks and what he'd like to see reduced for his own self.
Excellent. It's a curiosity, asking really, what does it do for you? Why do you need to use it? What else could help? Depending on his answer, if it was to relieve stress or to zone out, to relax his body, what else could give you that in a healthier way, right?
Either what else, if he's interested, or where is it getting in your way in ways that you don't feel like you have control? What can help you gain control? And can we be a part of that? And we're happy to help in any way where you think it's damaging. Asking that question from his own perspective really changes the conversation where he starts to take agency of his own process, of his own decisions. It's no longer, I'm going to do this, I don't care what anybody else says. It's, wait a minute, I'm the one paying the price.
Wow. Yeah. Beautiful. Again, it's the teamwork. It's that what it was the word you use, authority,
The
partnership?
partnership of
Yeah, I
authority.
love that. I love that because that's exactly what it is. You're on the same team. And there is definitely a movement of, and I think it's always been that way, of teens loving marijuana or going towards it because it chills them out and there's a lot of social pressure, there's a lot of academic pressure, whatever it is. Learning ways to regulate their feelings. They have very intense feelings. That's why DBT, as you mentioned to me on a previous discussion, was originally for bipolar um, patients, and it works really well for teens as well because their emotions are so extreme. And for me, in my work as a social practitioner, regulation is everything. And I wish that children from a young age could learn regulation. And so that when they get into the teen years, they already have those tools that when their emotions are erupting volcanoes, they know how to breathe and they know how to ground and they know how to process. I mean, it must be the most frightening thing to have a painful feeling in your chest, or in your stomach or in your head and not knowing what to do with that. So could you talk a bit about DBT and how it works?
Yeah, I want to actually also, I'm just going to backpedal 1 second because you said there's always been people teens that were attracted to marijuana. And I'm going to remind you that Sophia started in the year 2000. And obviously, and I was working with teens before that. And the, the climate, the map completely shifted between then and now because when we were first running Sophia and they were going to town and going out and getting into trouble, they were getting into trouble with alcohol. And when they're getting in trouble with alcohol, they were bar fights. And we were in the hospital with stitches and tables being thrown and all kinds of like scary accidents. And it's not that I love marijuana. But if you ask me what I prefer teenagers to mess with, definitely hands down marijuana. Everybody's calm, everybody's loving, everybody's peaceful, and the conversation about it is just really, really different. The violence is different. The going to prison. I mean, we were in the the first few years of Sophia, we were getting girls out of jail because of what happened on alcohol. And so I think I also think like just to give perspective that we get really panicky about it. Kids that are in a good trajectory are going to do what's right for them and good for them and healthy for them as long as we believe in them. And we don't need to panic that much. If it was alcohol to the way it was, that's scarier.
Thanks for sharing that.
Um, and then about DBT, um, is that was your question, right? Your
Yeah,
question was about using about how DBT is helpful for teens.
right.
So you said it yourself. You said that it was formulated for people with bipolar, borderline. I'm sorry, for people with BPD, with borderline personality disorder, actually, and people with borderline personality disorder, like you said, you have high level emotions. Regulating is difficult for them. They could have fragmented personalities, like kind of all over the place. They can be impulsive. Um, they can have chaotic relationships. Um, Knowing who they are and what's going on internally for them can be really challenging. And that's people that are diagnosed with BPD, which sounds very much like many teens that I know. Right. I mean, it's just that present with very similar symptoms to people with borderline personality disorder or complex post-trauma. So today we use DBT for many problems or even just for just living. I mean, the workshops I run are populated mostly with your regular housewives that are here to learn some great life skills. So imagine how useful these skills are for teens to learn how to contain their impulses, regulate their emotions, navigate relationships in a more effective manner, handle distress because their distress levels are so high as it is, handle the distress in ways that are more functional and adaptive. And first and foremost, just learning to become mindful as you're becoming an adult and becoming aware of yourself, learning what's going on internally for you, learning how that makes you who you are, and being intentional with all of that. It's so golden. I wish that they taught that to me when I was a teenager.
Wow, wouldn't that have been a gift, right? Well, I think we all wish that we could have suffered a lot less and
So
learned
much.
skills sooner. I often wonder why it's not taught at school to children. Um,
Somebody asked me that recently, and actually, I don't think it would be the same if it was taught to kids. It's just the same way, like you learn Yiddishkeit as a child, and then you kind of have to relearn it as an adult from a fresh perspective because it becomes rote and you don't own it from a place where you're cognitively available for what happens when you're an adult and you can, it's different.
right, so a child won't grasp a lot of the, complex ideas, although maybe breathing could be in different language, like blowing a balloon or whatever it is, or calming the
Yeah, I
butterflies
think
in
there's
your
a
chest or
many,
stomach.
yeah,
So the language would
yeah,
be very, very simplified. But I do think that for sure teenagers, around age 12, 13, could start understanding these concepts of what does physical sensations of emotion feel like and how to process it and how to release it and how to breathe and ground and to not be afraid of big feelings and not have to go to dangerous or unhealthy measures to numb and stop that suffering. So I for sure think that's why DBT is great, a great tool that you used. Um,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What if we could sum up, um, if a parent could invest, obviously we said the relationship is a big one. Having some a partnership in authority is a big one. If we could sum up some steps or some tools that parents could help have healthy teens. I know a lot of environment matters as well, like if they get enough sleep, if they eat, well enough. Nutrition's a big one. For example, Monster, this Monster drink that they drink drives me crazy because it has ridiculous things in it, like 12 teaspoons of sugar or whatever it is. It's worse than any sugar drink and the chemicals, and it's literally called Monster for a reason. But that pretty much sums up their hygiene and their nutritional hygiene and the way they look after their bodies. But if you could sum up some tools that would help parents try and have healthy teens.
Um, Again, I think it's, I come back to, first of all, I say validate, validate, validate. Okay, this is a simple one. And validating is your fairy dust, your magical fairy dust. Sprinkle it everywhere, especially on your teens. Sprinkle it generously. What does validate mean? We know what validating means. We understand, we see our children, we want them to know and feel seen and understood. But sometimes it's hard to understand them. Why are they doing this much marijuana? Like, what is the deal? And why did they just steal? Why did they just go into my bag and take my credit card and go buy them and their friends whatever they just bought? Or, there's things that are really, really hard to validate. They just screamed and yelled at their younger sibling. So we're not necessarily, we don't want to be validating poor behavior, but we do want to look for the reasons and the ways that where they're at, how they're behaving, and how they're feeling is valid. And if we're having difficulty doing that, talk to a friend, talk to a therapist. But that's our work. Our work is to help figure out how where they're at is valid. It doesn't mean that it's the right way. It doesn't mean that there isn't another way. It doesn't mean that there aren't more effective ways to be in the world and healthier ways to be in the world. But we do want to be able to see how where they're at and how they're behaving is valid for where they're coming from and what's going on for them.
Could you give me an
And that is
example?
validating.
Could you give me an example? Like, say a teenager wants to stay out all night, right? They have school the next day, it's New Year's Eve, and they want to stay out till 3 a.m. because all the kids are in the park having pizza and they have school the next day. How do you validate that?
Okay, great. I'm so happy you asked that question because I'm not in any way saying don't have limits. And if we were in a position to have a partnership of authority, it would include limits. And the odds that that limit would allow for them to be out all night on New Year's Eve is pretty slim, right? Unless they're out at a friend's house and we know who the parents are and what's being served. But otherwise, right? But the fact that they want to be out with their friends all night partying, that desire is valid. I understand that desire. I remember that desire. I understand what's fun about that. Doesn't mean it's good for them or healthy for them, but the desire is valid. And if I can see that through their lens, and I can also understand how disappointing it is that I'm going to draw a boundary here, and I can have empathy and compassion for that really frustrating reality and validate that, our conversation is very different. I'm not the monster. I'm not the bad guy. I'm somebody who really cares about them and is going to help draw this boundary, even though I understand why they want this so badly.
Wow, I love that. And so you can have both. You can go out with your friends with a limit, and you still have to go to school the next day. So no matter what, like that's the deal, right? And you say and I love that you see their side and you were once a teenager too, and you once also wanted to stay out with your friends all night, and you really appreciate now that your parents told you to come home because there was school the next day, and that's the right thing to do, right? And they
Y-
might
y-
they might say it and say I hate you and leave, but still come home at the time you said and still go to school the next day, right? So it's
Yeah,
tough
that
stuff, tough
partnership
stuff.
will look different depending on each kid and and what the relationships are. But I think just being able to understand where they're coming from, even when it's like um they're being abusive to their siblings in the house because they have all this dysregulated emotion. So that's a big no-no. Like no one is, you may not beat on your sibling and you may not be screaming like that to this child. And this is terrorizing the family. And that's absolutely unacceptable, but also like what's going on? And like this is so hard for you. And I see how in pain you are, and I see how confusing all of this is. And I just want to, just my desire to hug or to be or to support or to love is validating on its own, even if I can't, even if I have to draw the boundary. Like
Yeah,
you
I
cannot.
love that. Add those hugs in, like just like you said, pour on the validation, pour on those hugs, because these guys are just, I don't know, they won't. I don't feel like they all will come out and ask for a hug, but the minute you give it to them, they just melt into your arms, and when you stay there for a little bit longer, 6 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever it is, you can see how much they need it. It's almost like a plant that needs that water and sunshine, and they just soak it up and really, a parent's regulated nervous system is probably the biggest gift that we could give these guys because it's almost like this wildfire around you. And if you stay firm, as hard as it is, you could go and scream in a pillow after. But while you're
No,
there,
but I actually, yes, and I love what you just said because you can go scream in a pillow after, but what you just said is that the parent's nervous system is regulated. So you're not going to necessarily need to scream in a pillow after, right?
right,
Because,
right.
but that's kind of bringing this back full circle that we have to take a little agency to do our work right now because our teens are like teenagers are the place where we're not getting away with it anymore if we
Beautiful.
haven't done the work.
We have to grow up too. Like the adult has to grow up. By the time they're teenagers, oh boy, are you growing up, whether you want to or not? I mean, if you want,
Exactly.
if you want to hang on to them in your life, I mean, there's a lot of teenagers that grow up and hate their parents and never want to speak to them. Sadly, chas v'sholem. But we don't want to be at that point, right? As Jews, family is very important to us. As you know,
Not only that, but really often our children's well-being really depends on our relationship with them. It's much, much harder to help a child who isn't in connection with their family and with their parents. If we can maintain that relationship, we're also protecting them and granting them the gift of an easier journey through this really difficult time.
oh my
So really
goodness,
for our
so
children,
much.
not just for the wholeness of our family.
So much the journey to give them that shield. I mean, there's stories of a lot of kids going off the derech, and it's so heartbreaking. But what's more heartbreaking is that the adult in their life, which you would hope would be the one that would make the choice to be the strong force, pushes them further away. And I've even heard sad stories of them being kicked out of home at 16 because they've gone off the derech, and it doesn't fit their parents' expectations of what life would be. And if you can't listen to your parent, then you're out. And that's the extreme struggle where that authority is not a partnership. It's like my way or the highway. And sadly, those are the saddest cases because then they're on their own. And then what? Then the street takes them in. Sadly. God forbid.
Yes, yes. I mean, my background is a little bit like that, and that's what inspired me to work with teens so much is being in the streets with those kids that were in the streets with me. It was much the journey to healing. I mean, it's just there's so much going to the bottom of the barrel there. It's so challenging and so much additional trauma just because you're in the street.
Right, it's very painful and I wish that parents had some knowledge as well. What does it mean if your child is off the derech? They're not your child anymore. They have to equals perfection or they're not your child. If they go through a journey of their own of going off the derech and coming back to Judaism and they choose that makes them a Baal Teshuvah and that's a very holy place to be as well. So I think for a parent, really like you said, it's time to do the work just as much for the parents, um, and to grow together. And I think if we could sum up and finish up, to really say that a healthy teen is someone who has validation from their parents, who has a parent that can be a parent that really is the adult authority in the relationship, that can be grounded, that can hold almost like a vessel, hold these huge emotions that the teen's going through to show them by example. We're not always perfect, sure, fine. But if we can, most of the time, or a lot of the bulk of the time, show them what does it look like to have big feelings and to calm yourself down, to regulate yourself, because they'll see it through us, right? They look to us. They're always with a role model. And please God
Either
that
they're looking as models or they're looking to show, to demonstrate how off we are. Either
wow.
way, either way, our work is critical here in order to help them grow.
Right, it's a mirror. You're right. It's either a mirror or a role model that and they can push your buttons. And the more you get worked up, the more they push because it's a reaction, right? It's almost like a okay, she's getting triggered. Let's push more because it's
So
I don't
much
know,
fun.
so much fun.
Yes, so much fun.
They are children at the end of the day, I guess.
We do
So
it to one another as adults. I hate to tell you, Siobhan.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So why wouldn't they? For sure, for sure. And positive reinforcement, I think that's another big tool is if you see something good in them, tell them. They don't know. Tell them that you love them. Do you know how many teens tell me that their parents have never said they love them? Never. Not only that, their parents have even said, "I wish you were never born." Like that, it's
Oh,
pain. It's a pain that you can't even. What do you do with that kind of pain? Right? Right? So tell them you love them, give them hugs, um, teach them, yeah, if you could teach, if you could learn DBT and teach your teens somehow how to regulate, calm themselves down, that's a big gift. So Bassie, thank you for this amazing talk and I really
Paulette, it's fun
enjoyed
to
being
talk
with
to
you.
you.
And please
I
God,
feel like we could just keep schmoozing.
forever and
It's so
ever.
fun. Yeah, this was a
Oh,
lot of
you're
fun.
awesome. Thank you for the amazing work you do and just carry
Thank
on
you.
and I wish you would write a book one day, actually.
I will.
Maybe.
It's
Gonna
coming.
plant the seed.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. Coming
Yeah,
soon. And
coming soon.
I like to end my talk off with a little bit of a brocha blessing for our listeners. And also to the listeners, if this was helpful to you, please could you share it with someone that you think could benefit? And Bassie, would you like to give a brocha to our listeners?
Yeah, I bless all of us with the desire, the willingness, and the wisdom to figure out what our own personal growth needs to be so that uh, we can be guiding our children properly through our own modeling and that we eliminate the bits of us that are getting in the way of us being there for our kids in the way we want to be. It's an opportunity for us, for them, for Klal Yisrael, for all of the universe. So I'm blessing all of us with that wisdom, clarity, and openness.
Amen. Wow, beautiful. I wish, please God, with Siyata
Amen.
Dishmaya. And just to add on to that, I bless all of us. May we all be blessed with peace, with Shalom Bait. I think we take for granted how much Shalom Bait is a beauty, a necessity in our day, in our busy lives, in our busy worlds. The children need it, we need it. Enjoy them. Just a brocha to focus on the good. I think you said that somewhere is where's your focus? Where your focus goes, energy flows. So sure they're not perfect, sure they can be annoying as hell. But focus on something beautiful because they do have that beauty. They'll do something good and show them that. Focus on it, build it. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you,
God bless.
Shibolet, for
God
this
bless.
opportunity.
Thank you so
You
much.
too.
Take care.
Thank
Bye
you. Take
bye.
good care, Shibo. I'll see you
And you.
soon.
Bye bye.